guys, it's Sarah from Just My Typewriter, and I've been collecting typewriters for about 4 years now, and I've seen a lot of typewriters. And I often get asked on both here on YouTube and on my Instagram, just.my.typewriter, how do I buy my first typewriter? So I decided to start a nice little series here on Typewriter 101, what to do as you get your first machine. Now, I have done some videos that are related to Typewriter 101. If you want the crash course, like the night before the final, cram it all into one video, I suggest this one, Typewriter 101, what to do when you get a new typewriter. But I'm going to go into detail on some of the things you need to consider as you're getting your first typewriter. In this episode, we're going to talk about picking your first machine. Now, the great thing about collector communities and the typewriter community specifically is that there's a lot of variety out there. You can have preferences in just about anything. You can collect machines from a certain era, certain color, certain brand, certain mechanics. You can pick just about anything and make that your collection. Sit. That's my light. You can't stand in front of my light. You're going to mess up my lighting. What are you doing? That also means, however, that people are going to have their own preferences when it comes to collecting and have their different reasons for picking out the specific machines that they do. I personally go a lot based on budget and availability. She's just going to make noise over there and we're just going to have to deal with it. I come from the school of thought that it doesn't matter why you want to buy your first typewriter. If you want to buy a typewriter, go and buy it. I don't care what you do with it. If you want to put it on a shelf and look at it, if you want to put it on your desk and write with it, if you saw California Typewriter and you thought it would be cool to have a typewriter like Tom Hanks, like me, then I think that's a totally valid reason to buy your first typewriter. Not every collector feels the same way, but I give you permission to buy whatever typewriter you want. That being said, there might be some considerations that go into buying that first typewriter that might make the process a little bit easier and a bit more intuitive. So let's start with the basics on the kinds of typewriters that exist. Now, there are tons of typewriters out there. They come in all kinds of shapes, sizes, and colors. My first typewriter was this 1960 Smith Rowan, of course, R Deluxe. I bought it on eBay for about $70, including shipping, and I just picked it because I liked the color. But I wish I had done a little bit more considerations about the type of typewriter, the way I wanted to use it, before I made that first purchasing decision, because I might have gone with something a little bit more suited to my personal needs as a collector and typewriter user. So the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what am I going to do with this typewriter? If you just want a display typewriter and you're going based off of aesthetics, that might steer you in a different direction than you might have if you were going to use that typewriter pretty consistently. If you want to write your first novel, you might pick a different machine. And so that brings you to the first question, do you want an electric typewriter or a manual typewriter? Now, an electric, hence the name, needs electricity. So that's a machine that you would plug into the wall. It's really easier to type on. It's much more like a typical computer keyboard than it would be to type on a manual typewriter. A lot of the things are mechanized. You can find electric typewriters with carriage return levers or a shift button like you would have on your computer keyboard. There's a little bit of variety in those machines. And if you're looking for something to use consistently, but you don't want to go through the process of maybe having to learn how to type on a keyboard that's different than your laptop keyboard, you might want to go with an electric typewriter. Now, let's say that you don't want to get an electric typewriter and you want a manual typewriter. You're more into vintage things, you're looking for a machine that maybe has a little bit more of that typewriter aesthetic, you want to learn how to use your typewriter, and you want something that is going to take a little bit more effort, and you want to go with a manual typewriter. I started with manual typewriters. Those are the ones I mostly purchase and repair as a hobbyist technician person living in my parents' house and fixing them in the basement, and those are the machines that I typically go for myself. Now, these machines can range in lots of age ranges, and they can also range in style and size. Now, when it comes to size, there are about 3 different categories of manual typewriters. A lot of your electric typewriters are either going to be in a portable style, which means they come in a case. They're going to weigh a little bit more because they're electric and they've got electronics on the inside, so you're looking at like 25 to 30 pounds. Or you can get a big desk standard size electric typewriter, which you'll never move anywhere. My Selectric is a gazillion pounds, I'm pretty sure. I didn't weigh it, but that's my guesstimated weight on that machine. When it comes to a manual typewriter, there are 3 main sizes or categories of manual typewriters. Now, there are variations on these. Obviously, there's a lot of variety in typewriters, but these are the three main categories. You've got your lightweight portable. These are often advertised by modern collectors as ultra portables. They are 9 to 10 pounds. They often come in a really cute either little leather case or with a case topper. They're really great for storage, very easy to carry around, but because of their size, they tend to move all over the place as you're typing. So as you're typing, they will start to tilt on your typing surface. They are not built for heavy duty use, they're built for the traveler. So if you're looking to travel with a typewriter, that might be a really great option. Let's say you're looking to get a little bit more use out of your typewriter and you've got just a little bit more space. You might want to go with a portable typewriter. Now this is very popular. I have lots of portable typewriters. They're a little bit bigger. They still come in a case, however. So you can move these around. They can weigh anywhere from 18 to 30 pounds. A lot of mine weigh in that 15-pound range. They will come with a carrying case. They're a little bit bigger than your typical ultra portable. They're a little bit thicker, but they also are a lot easier to type on. They will not slide as much as an ultra portable, and you can last a little bit longer on a portable typewriter. Very popular, and you'll see lots of these for sale. If you are wanting to be a heavy user and you've got the perfect desk for a nice typewriter, you might want to go with a desktop standard typewriter. Now these are the big daddy typewriters. They're heavy duty. They can range in weight anywhere from 35 pounds to 50 something pounds. I think this one is in the 40-pound range. This is one of my standard machines. These machines are great for heavy users. If you want to sit down and write your first novel on a typewriter, I suggest you go with a desktop standard typewriter because they're not going to slide around as you're typing. They're really well grounded to the surface that you're working on, and because they're heavier and heavier duty, they can take a lot of typing on a more consistent basis. So thinking about what kind of typewriter you want and what you're going to be using it for, those are some considerations when it comes to the size of typewriter. There are advantages and disadvantages to each type, and those are important to note as you're thinking about getting your first typewriter. On an ultra portable, you might have some disadvantages when it comes to getting a new ribbon. Now, ribbon, and we're going to talk about this in a later episode, is what actually inks the letters up to type on the page. And a lot of the typewriters that you might be finding that are vintage and not redone by a professional are going to need a new ribbon when you purchase them. There are lots of ribbon buying options out there, but when it comes to putting a new ribbon on an ultra portable or a portable or a standard typewriter, the thing you want to think about is the spools. Now the spools are the thing that the ribbon wraps around and actually gets set in the machine. Almost all of the ultra portables I personally have in my collection do not fit the universal spool size that is made today. Let me rephrase that. So if you go and purchase a universal replacement for a typewriter ribbon, the ribbon is going to be the same size on almost every machine. However, the little plastic thing that ribbon is wrapped around is going to come in one standard size unless you get a special ribbon. Ultra portables, the tiny ones, often have a much smaller spool size in the machine. So because they're so compact, they actually designed the spools to be smaller than the standard universal replacement for a typewriter spool. Because of this, it can be more expensive to source new spools for your typewriter. Now you can rewrap ribbon, and again, we'll talk about that at a later time, but that is a consideration. If you're getting an ultra portable and you don't want to have to do a ton of work in replacing a ribbon, the spool size might be different on an ultra portable than on a portable or standard typewriter. Ultra portables, however, have the great advantage of coming in a lot of cool colors and designs, and they're super, super portable. I took one to Disney World. They're really easy to carry around. They've got a nice lightweight feel to them. They're just really great machines if you're on the go. When it comes to a portable, these can get a little bit bigger, but they're a really nice mix between a standard machine and an ultra portable machine. If they come with their case, and don't buy one without a case because they're hard to source, if they come with their case, it's really easy to actually store them. They can be stored upright or downward. You can put them under your bed, on a shelf. They're really easy to store, especially in that case, and that case does keep them protected. So that's an advantage to the portable machine, but they're not as lightweight as an ultra portable typewriter, but they are really classic looking and really great machines. When it comes to a desktop standard machine, the obvious advantage here is that it is a heavy duty machine. You can sit and type on it all day. They're really great for heavy, consistent work. However, that also means they're really heavy. You're going to have a dedicated space to your typewriter at the point of a desktop standard. So whether that's a typewriter stand, a nice big heavy wood desk to put your typewriter on, or if it's a display piece, a really hefty bookshelf. So a desktop does have that advantage of being really great for heavy users, but not so great when it comes to storage options. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of the three main size categories of typewriters in the manual category. The next question I most often get when you're buying your first typewriter is, where do I get my first typewriter? And there are lots of buying options when it comes to purchasing your first typewriter. I personally suggest that you try to get your first typewriter in person. Now, I didn't do this when I was buying my first typewriter because I didn't know any better, but you have a guru, and that guru is me, and I'm telling you to try to get your first typewriter in person for a couple of reasons. Typewriters all feel different when you type on them. You might not know what kind of feel you like on a typewriter if you don't get to test it out first. When I was trying to get my mom her first typewriter, she had to try 6 or 7 different typewriters for the typing feel to see which machine she liked best. They all type different across brands, across models. Even machines that are the same model and make will feel different. It's like a car. You should probably test drive it before you buy it. So when buying your first typewriter, I highly suggest you try to buy one in person. When it comes to buying typewriters in person, you have a few options. I suggest you try Facebook Marketplace as your first stop. Now, Facebook Marketplace is a little hit or miss and the prices can vary, but what's really great about Facebook Marketplace or other buying and selling apps like OfferUp, I know there's a few others that are different in Canada or the UK. When you're on a site like that, you can select local pickup, which means you can look at typewriters in your area. Craigslist is also a good one for this. You can look at the pictures they have, decide if that's something you might want to look into, and try to arrange a meetup in person to try out that typewriter. That'll also allow you to do some testing of that machine to see if it's actually in a good state or condition. You probably want to buy a typewriter that's in good condition for your first machine because nobody should have to tackle a really scary repair on their first typewriter. It's a little intimidating. You can also try yard sales. You might be able to get machines for a lot cheaper at yard sales because they have the distinct advantage of having to pack up everything after the sale is over, so you might be able to negotiate. You can also try estate sales. I've had really good luck at finding typewriters at estate sales, and again, they have the advantage of having to pack everything up after the sale is over. And you can also try antique stores or thrift stores. Now, in an antique store or a thrift store, you might have to pay a little bit more than you would at a yard sale, but you also have the option to test out that machine in person in that physical location. And I highly suggest, if you can for your first typewriter, try before you buy, just to make sure you like it, because this is an investment. Whether it's a collection or just a piece of decor, you want to make sure you really like it when you're putting that money into it. Now, if you don't have a ton of typewriters in your area that you just don't like the look of, and you're not afraid of maybe getting a machine that you don't like the feel of as much, you can try online shopping for typewriters. And there are a few locations for that as well. Again, you can try Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp or any of those other sale sites to try the shipping option on those and get a typewriter from there that can be shipped to you. But another great place that people get a lot of their typewriters from is eBay. In fact, that's where I purchased my first typewriter because I didn't know where else to go. On eBay, you can search typewriter. You can also search a lot of different, more specific options when it comes to typewriters, and you're going to have a lot more variety, both in price, in type, in location. If you're international, you might be able to find different types of typewriters on eBay. There are a lot more options when it comes to buying a typewriter on eBay just because there's such a wider market. This does mean, however, that you will have to pay shipping costs on a typewriter, and regardless of what kind of typewriter you buy, it's going to be heavy, and shipping can be a little bit of a scary process. If you get somebody who doesn't really know how to pack and ship a typewriter, you might end up with a damaged machine on the other end of that process, which is why I often suggest people buy their typewriters in person, because you're not going to risk possibly damaging that machine in shipping. However, if you're looking for something very specific, eBay and online retailers might be the way to go. You also might want to try Shop Goodwill. This is an online retailer auction site for Goodwill headquarters. They ship a lot of their typewriters there. You can usually find them for lower cost depending on the machine and how many people are interested in it. However, you're not going to get a full condition check on that machine before you buy it. So the person listing it may not know the condition that machine is actually in, and you might end up with a project that you didn't really intend to want to have to fix. Another option when it comes to buying typewriters online and even in person, depending on your location, is to go to a professional. Now, there are lots of typewriter collectors out there who have gone through the process of learning how to professionally restore and repair a vintage or antique typewriter. These people know their stuff. They're fantastic and amazing. And if you're looking for a good quality machine or a custom machine, you may want to go to a repair tech. Now, this does come with a higher price tag than running into one at a yard sale. And that's because you're also paying for the time of the mechanic to fix that thing. It's like if you're buying a used car. If you buy it off of the old lady next door, you'll probably get it at a lower price than if you were to go to a used car dealer where they've put time into restoring that vehicle. It's just going to be the extra cost of repairing that machine, but you know you're getting a machine that's already been tested for condition, and you know that when they ship it to you, they've done that shipping process before, and that might be a really big advantage and something you're willing to pay more for the peace of mind that that machine's going to show up in good condition. Now, there are several online people that I recommend, and I'm going to list all of their websites and links below, and you might also be able to visit one of their shops in person depending on your location. There's a typewriter repair shop in New York. You've also got the Typespace on the West Coast. There are also people in international countries that do a lot of typewriter restoring and restorations. So you've got Mr. and Mrs. Vintage in the UK, a couple other shops. I'll list them all below. But these are people who have gone through the process of learning how to fix a typewriter, and they can do a custom job for you as well. So if you're looking for a custom paint job, you might also be able to get that from a professional repair tech, depending on the one that you go to. And if you're willing to put in the money for a machine like that, you're going to end up with something that has been tested and condition checked. So that's another way to buy your first typewriter. So maybe you've determined you want a manual machine, you want a portable, and you're looking at your buying options, but you haven't really seen anything yet that really hits you. You might want to do a little bit more research in the kind of machines that are available to the market. And a great way to do this is just to Google typewriters online. There's a really fantastic resource called the Typewriter Database, and I've talked about that on here before, and I'll link some videos about that as well. This is a great big catalog of all of the machines collectors have found out there, their serial numbers, their makes and models, the years that they were made, and you can go through the Typewriter Database, just click on things and look at the pictures of people's machines in the community to see what you might like the look of. So going through and doing a little bit of research just on visually what you like the look of can be really helpful in determining your first typewriter. And maybe that makes you wait for a little bit, and sometimes you have to keep looking and put a search alert on Facebook Marketplace for anytime somebody puts an ad out for a typewriter, and you just have to sit and wait till the right thing comes along. And that's a big suggestion I have here. Don't jump on the first expensive typewriter you see in your local area because it might not be the right one. It's important to test the machine if you can before you buy to make sure the condition is where you want it to be. Make sure you're setting yourself some sort of price limitation. Every collector community is going to have the high price machines and the low price machines. And if you're not sure yet where you want to go with getting your first typewriter and you can't afford to make a huge investment piece out of it, it's okay to sit around and wait for the right deal to come along. You don't have to buy every typewriter that you see. Make sure you're getting the right one, because for your first typewriter, you want a really good experience, because if it's not good, then all other typewriters are too intimidating to continue collecting. Maybe you've done all these processes. You've looked at typewriters in the typewriter database, you've tried looking in your local area, you've got the notifications set for Facebook, and you're still a little bit stuck on which machine is the best one for you to start with. And you can ask other collectors for their recommendations for your first machines. Now, everybody has their own personal preferences when it comes to typewriters. It doesn't matter who you talk to, everybody's going to have a different answer. If you go onto the forums related to typewriters, like the Facebook group Antique Typewriter Collectors, you might get different answers from different collectors. If you message people on Instagram, like myself or other repair techs and collectors, you might get other answers there. I get asked all the time, what's the best typewriter for my 9-year-old? And my answer is always a Smith Corona from the 1950s or 60s in the 5 series. Now, there were a couple different typewriters in this line: the Clipper, the Silent Super. There's another, Sterling, that's the other one. These are all machines that were made in the 1950s and 1960s. They're all portable machines. They look like this. They come in a wide variety of colors, and I highly suggest them to any first collector because there's a lot of variety. You can get things in different colors or different styles, and that can really help if you're looking for something a little bit more fun to put on your bookshelf, and there's a lot of them, at least here in the US. This might not apply as much to my international friends because International places will have different brands of typewriters, especially if you have a different keyboard layout for your language in your country. So there might be other more popular brands in your areas. It might be really difficult to get your hands on a Smith Corona typewriter in your country. Here in America, we have a lot of them, and I highly suggest these to any first-time buyers for a couple of reasons. First of all, repairing these is a lot easier than some of the other machines out there. They're a little bit more intuitive than other typewriters out there on the market. They also can take a beating. These machines can really take a lot of use. The outsides of them are really easy to clean in that crinkle paint finish. They just, in my experience, have lasted a really long time. There's also a variety of colors, and what's really great is because there's so many of them, at least in the US, you can usually get machines like this for a little bit cheaper because there are more of them. This is not a rare typewriter by any means, which means you can usually get it for a little bit more of an affordable cost just to see if you really like it as a typewriter. It's got all the basic things a typewriter should have, like a paper tray and a return lever and a platen and keys and anything else you could really need to make a typewriter work. And because of that, I suggest this for first-time users and first-time buyers. If it's been a while since you've tried a typewriter, this might be the way to get you back into machines. It's a really nice middle-of-the-road model, which is why I personally suggest that as your first machine. But again, it's totally based on preference, and it might not work for you. You might find something else that you just love more, and that's awesome. Totally go with what really speaks to your heart as a collector and a first-time typewriter buyer. So that's a little food for thought on buying your first typewriter. First of all, there's no wrong reason to buy your first typewriter, and you can go for whatever you want on your first typewriter. You can pay a lot, you can pay a little, you can buy something that's really rare, you can buy something that's super standard in the typewriter collector community. It's all about what really speaks to you. I personally bought this Smith Corona over here, this Corsair Deluxe, as my first typewriter for the color. I didn't know what I was doing, but this is my favorite color. So when I bought this machine, I was so excited because it spoke to me because of that. Since then, I've learned a lot more about typewriters and have different preferences when it comes to what machines I want to personally use, but because I found this first typewriter, it really opened the door for me to find other machines that I really loved and like having in my collection. So whatever speaks to you is what you should go for. Whatever standards you personally want to have for your first machine is awesome. But these are some questions you should probably ask yourself if you're going to buy a typewriter as an investment piece. I'm also going to open it up in the comments below to let other collectors give you their suggestions for the best first typewriter to start your collection. So if you have a lot of typewriters, feel free to let everyone in the comments know what's the best first machine for you as a collector. And that way we have a nice big long list of other machines people suggest down in the comments below. These are just a few considerations. If you have other suggestions for considerations you should make before buying your first typewriter, let me know in the comments below. And if you're a first-time buyer or first-time user, let me know what kind of videos in this series, Typewriter 101, might be helpful to you as you're going on your typewriter journey. If you're interested in more typewriter content, I've got lots of other videos on this YouTube channel, and I'll have more in this Typewriter 101 series soon to come. I also have an Instagram at just.my.typewriter. Feel free to DM me there with questions or leave me comments below with questions that you have about buying your first machine. And I thank you all so much for watching today and remind you that you're just my typewriter.